never compromise. You can always be compromised. There's always compromises to be made. Don't compromise yourself. Once somebody's got something on you, you're gone. Right? I built 2,000 apartments in that 7 years. It was an amazing journey. We made a lot of money. 20 years when I've been able to drive past the buildings that we built and say, I built that building. It looks looking good. There wasn't really room for two of us, and it was absolutely flying. So it was all ended in a conversation one afternoon, and after 20 years of working with somebody, I was a broken man, and my business was taken away from me.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to ask a massive favour of you guys. At the moment, we're putting a big priority on growing our YouTube channel. So if you aren't already subscribed to us there, if you could head over to YouTube, type in the Quest for Success podcast, or just click the link down in the show notes below, head over to our channel and subscribe to us there. You'll get access to all of our video interviews that we do with our guests. And it will do us a massive favor because it will help us grow the show, which means we can get on bigger and better guests for you guys. And with that, back to the episode. All right, welcome back to the Quest for Success podcast, and thanks so much for tuning in once again. Today, we're incredibly excited because we have on another fellow Harvard guest, a friend of the show, Mr. Michael Fox.
Yes, Michael and I know each other for the last 3 years, doing Harvard OPM program, and I would class him as one of my good friends. And he's got lots of experience, especially in the property development area, and we are fortunate to have him today to have a chat. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Thanks, boys. I've watched a few of your and listened to a few of your podcasts, so I'm a bit nervous today. I'm not sure that I'm really in the quest for success era of some of the people that you've had on before. I'm just a humble property developer, so we'll see how we go.
Sure. I mean, I've heard a lot about you, but I'm keen to sit down and actually delve deep into your story. But before we begin, we need to understand something fundamental, and that is, what does success mean to you?
I've been dreading the question, actually, and now that it's here, it's even more real because the answer is so hard. I've gone back and I've even looked at some of your previous takes with other people, and it seems to be a bit of a struggle of a question. Everyone's got a different answer, but I suppose the one that really resonated with me the most was probably around family. I was brought up, humble beginnings. My dad was a plumber. I've got four brothers and sisters, so we're a family of five, Catholic family. Dad worked hard. Mum was a homemaker, and life was really all about family. And Mum's past 10 years now, but Dad's still around, and for him, his life is just his family and his 15 grandkids. And I look at him and think, he looks back and he thinks it's his family's the most amazing success of all time. He always says, we got no duds. We could, all the trouble that people have these days with kids and everything, he said, we've got no issues with any of our kids in any of the families. It's amazing. And I say, well, my family is the same. I mean, I've got 3 amazing daughters. We don't really know where all these people came from, but I've got 3 girls that are all high 90s VCE, double degrees, and working. And it's like, it doesn't get much better than that from from my point of view. So I think that's probably success. And then the other one that the issue that comes up is the legacy. Your legacy. What's your legacy? How are you going to be judged? A lot of people are going to think about you. So I think that's still a bit of a work in progress. I've had a few issues of recent times that have probably dented that in some respects, but it's all good now. It's onwards and upwards. So yeah.
And I suppose on that legacy piece, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Well, I suppose it goes back to, my three daughters. I say everything I do for them. My life is really about them. And I don't know what the legacy piece is, but to leave them something that'll, help them along in life and hope them have, a great time, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't really know. We've still got
a journey.
There's a little bit to go yet.
Yeah. And I suppose for us to understand the man who's sitting in front of us today, we need to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you take us through a little bit of your early life? I know you said your dad was a plumber, but how you kind of, from young Michael into that kind of early introduction into property?
So young Michael, Catholic primary school, Xavier College private school. Didn't go to university. So I would pretty much. I started going to university. I decided that it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Hence my late comeback to go to Harvard down the track to prove that I could actually do something. So I pretty much went straight to work, and I went into real estate. And I suppose I started as a property manager, driving up and down the streets of Melbourne. I worked for a big company that had like 4,000 flats on their books, and I'd do inspections and ingoing reports and outgoing reports. That led me to see, once you're in the property space, the sales guys are all driving around in flashy cars. And
This is after school, Michael?
yes, after school, yeah. So straight after school.
All right.
So no gap years, no nothing. Got a job.
Yeah.
And from there I went into residential sales. So I was a real estate salesperson when I was about 19, 20 or something. My boss, put me into a BMW 318i with a full BBS kit on it, and I was paying $620 a month in car payments, like all young real estate agents do. I still remember the amount. He says, "You got to work hard now. You have to actually pay this thing off."
Yeah.
Like, oh God. So that was I was sort of blessed along the way. I had good bosses there. From then, once you're in the residential space, you see these commercial deals sort of, look a bit bigger than, selling houses is, that's okay. But there's guys over there selling stuff for, back in the day, 5 million or 10 million. And I thought, I wouldn't mind a piece of that. So it was harder to break into the commercial space, but the old Catholic network worked, and I got... I had to go backwards to go forwards, so I went and got a job as a commercial property manager as a junior. Did that for a couple of years until I got on well with the sales and leasing team, and then I moved out of commercial property management into commercial sales and leasing and investment sales. At a company called McGee's, I was there for over 4 years. We had an amazing boss at the time, legend Tommy Davis. And there was 5 of us. We're all still around today, all in various roles in real estate around Victoria. And that was probably the love of it, really. Tommy taught us everything about land and values and how to value and things like that. So I moved out of that company and I went to a bigger company called Knight Frank, which was taken over by Hooker Corporate Knight Frank back in the day. To go and try and do bigger things again. So we were, instead of selling properties for 4 million, we were trying to sell properties for, 10 million and 20 million. And so I mucked around in that space for probably 3 to 4 years again. So I had quite a long stint in the commercial sort of real estate. And when you're in that space, then you get exposed to the development side of, that looks interesting to go and let's go and build an office building, or let's go and start building the warehouses rather than leasing them. So I decided to try and find my way into a development sort of role. So I got a junior, again sort of went backwards to go forward, got a job as a junior development manager working for the Smorgon family, well-known family in Australia. as their junior development manager, and I started developing or building these little Smorgon ARC outlets all around Australia. So I was sort of operated on a national basis, and I was there until the floating of what is now Smorgon Steel, which was subsequently taken over for 2.5 years. And then I joined a company called Toll Holdings. And given Jam, you're in the logistics space, you probably know a bit about Toll. It's an incredible story. I was the National Property Development Manager. When I started at Toll, it was turning over 300 million, and our office was based out in Corley Road in Brooklyn. And we had 50 properties, and the boys were developing a little bit of stuff and so forth. So I took over all those depots. Fast forward, 13 years at Toll, we went from $300 million turnover to something like 12 billion, or market cap of 12 billion. It might have been cap 12 of about 12. We had Patrick's. We bought 96 businesses along the way. We bought rails, ports, family businesses, bolt-on acquisitions. And every time we took over these companies, I remember we took over, the first medium-sized one we did. We bought TNT, TNT Freight, and that was 170 properties came with that, from seabed leases, licenses to ports, wharves, trains, warehouses, offices. And so my job as part of the executive team was then to integrate all that sort of stuff into the facilities. And if it didn't fit into one facility, we'd go and build another one, which then we became, pretty sharp at building our own facilities. So I built warehouses pretty much all around Australia. I'm talking big sheds, like Nike distribution centres, and Arnott's Biscuits, and all new Toll Express, NQX. I did a 40,000 metre warehouse for Nike in Shenzhen province in Shanghai, because we bought international businesses. So we had properties in Hong Kong, China, Japan. So by the time I'd left Toll, I was leaving Toll, I think the property portfolio was in the order of 900 or something like that.
Wow.
And so my team managed all the leases, all the building, the buying, the selling, the developing, the integration.
How old were you at that point?
That was 20 odd years ago now, probably.
So where does that that self-belief and self-confidence comes from? Because I'll be honest, if you threw me in a pit like that and said, you got to be managing $900 million worth of buildings, you'd be so blown away.
It just happens, you just roll with it. It was a smaller business, and we grew with the business. It was frenetic. We basically didn't have a holiday for 5 years. It's an amazing story. It should be a Harvard business case, because its downside was a few years ago it was sold to Japan Post for, a pittance of what it eventually. Japan Post bought it for about $4.5 billion, and then I think it got it got sold again for about 500 million or something.
Wow.
Broken up into various bits only a few years ago. So it's quite a tragedy from where we got it and where we took it. An amazing group of people and leaders, and it was a behemoth. It was, people say, Linfox was the biggest company in Australia. We were double that size, and it was probably just it was an amazing journey. And so along from there, the rest of the journey was I worked under the managing director of Toll for my 13 years, Paul Little, and along the way, Paul and I were would muck around and do a few things on the side, and we bought a bigger site in Richmond, and it was that side business was starting to get, okay, well, we can't do this anymore. I've got to go and manage it. So we had people managing it externally, but then I went in to become managing director of a little project. So I founded that with Paul.
Construction projects?
It'll be construction projects. So
And what was the vision there? Like, what were you doing different to other players?
It was just a great time in Melbourne or Australia, where we didn't have all the bureaucracy and everything that we had now. We had foreign investments, we had first home owner grants, we had federal government grants, we had all these other incentives going on, and we capitalised on that and built. I built 2,000 apartments in that 7 years.
Wow.
Around Melbourne. It was an amazing journey. We made a lot of money. We had great fun. I did all my sales trips. We sold apartments. We'd go on the road and we'd go Hong Kong, Singapore, Beijing, Shanghai, Malaysia. We had a small office in Hong Kong. We were selling to foreign investors, Taiwan, and it was we were booming. We were just built great towers in great locations, and we had a pretty good reputation. So that was an amazing journey. We built office buildings and Bunnings warehouses and all sorts of stuff. I was running a fully integrated real estate operation as well with it at the time, and had something like 80 or 90 people under me then. Then we broke out the property management because we were managing all these things, and Paul was buying bolts. He couldn't help himself. He'd buy bolt-on acquisitions and so forth. And then, unfortunately, that all came to an end after a pretty spectacular run. Paul decided that he wanted to get back involved with that business, and there wasn't really room for two of us. And it was absolutely flying. So it was all ended in a conversation one afternoon, and after 20 years of working with somebody, I was a broken man, and my business was taken away from me.
Wow.
It still hurts today. So anyway, the story continued with. I then had to go and find another capital partner. So I walked the streets of Melbourne and spoke to people, and I'd had a pretty good run, so I found another capital sponsor in the Costa family, Robert Costa.
Yep.
And so the journey continued. We started with me and him, and we built it to a team of about 8 or 10. And we did all sorts of things. Again, made good money, bought great sites. And then Robert decided that he wanted to exit. He wanted to take control back of the business, because once you're with a high net worth and we start, we got a couple $100 million out there, and it was that was an interesting transition. So it was handled very well. My previous experience wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Robert was a nature's gentleman, and it was all done and dusted, and that was 2.5 years ago that ended, which was very fortuitous, because it's right at the turning of the market, and for me to be busy in that business, I need to be buying something every 3 months and getting a new project going, and back then that wasn't going to be happening 2.5 years ago, and now you can see the property market, particularly Melbourne's pretty it's pretty stuff. So the only players are the big BTR guys around. Most of the developers are still hitting the wall or in the process of, or there's no DM fees left. Land prices still to be affected. Construction costs post COVID are through the roof. So it's not a great market. So I had a pretty good time. That was when I'd enrolled to go to Harvard.
Yep.
Because it was part of that business. At Costa, I went to see one of my mentors and said, well, I don't know what to do with this business. I mean, I've got 10 people. I don't know whether to make it 20 or 50, or do we go back to 80 or 100? Do we have, 200 projects? And this mentor, I'd never, it was Michael Buxton at the time, he just goes, you got to go and do Harvard OPM. Mm-hmm. I said, what's that? And he says, yeah, just don't worry about it, just go and do it. Right? And you'll understand the rest from there. And so I did. It took a while, but he was one of the, Michael and Andrew, legacy business here, and they're both ex-OPMers. So, I went and did it, and met you, Jam, and
Yep. And many other.
170 other amazing
Yeah.
people from around the world.
Yeah.
And now I'm just sort of, the rest of the journey is just on hold while we.
Yeah.
I'm just helping somebody in a little environmental and tech business that you can see behind me. That's quite interesting. It's a disruptor.
Yeah.
In not a very sexy market, exit signs and so forth. But
Yeah.
you know, it's when you think of the exit signs in how many there are around the world, every one of them has a battery backup. We've taken the battery out of them. The market is enormous, and we're having a crack at it from here in Australia. So, that's sort of my employment journey and everything, I guess.
It's a very fascinating story, Michael. I know you went very fast with 35 years of amazing story.
Yeah.
Tell me, property, right? Why did you get into property? Any reason initially you thought of getting into property?
You know, I used to sit with my mother on Saturday mornings and read the Age newspaper about what houses for sale, and then I always looked at the auction results the next day and so forth. So I don't know what it was. I just had an inkling.
Interest?
Yeah. When I left school, which I wasn't very good at school. I tried university and it just wasn't for me. You know, subsequently realised, you know, it's on ADHD diagnosed and everything. And no wonder I couldn't concentrate at school and whatever. So I'm more the bigger picture guy, I suppose, than the detailed guy.
Yeah. And you went into sales.
Yeah.
Do you have any like advice for people in sales? Like what is your hot tips to sales?
Always find the common ground. So don't try and sell. Be warm with somebody. Find out about them. If you go in for the kill too early, it's never going to work. It's all about long-term relationships and building trust. It's probably the biggest takeaways. I mean, I've read some pretty ambitious. There's been some pretty ambitious people on other quests for success, you know, who are dynamite, you know, sales guys. But no, just slowly build trust.
Yeah.
Have good product, I think, is also the main thing. If you don't believe in the product, you're wasting time. I believe in the product here. When we were building our towers and everything, you know, I always said to people, there was a lot of property developers out there who were building shit, right, and just cheap crap. And you've seen what's happened to some of those buildings lately and so forth. There's been issues with apartments, but I always said to people, I want to be able to drive past. In 20 years, I want to be able to drive past the buildings that we built and say, I built that building. It looks fucking good.
Yeah.
And I actually live in one of my buildings now, and I love it.
Wow.
So. And I met some people. Funny story. I went to stay with a friend in Broken Hill over Easter, and there's another couple sitting there. The parents of these people. They said, "Oh, where do you live?" She says, "Oh, I live in Bay Street." I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "I built some apartments in Bay Street, 101." She goes,
Yeah.
"That's where we live."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh shit."
I hope it's all right.
Is it all right? She goes, "We love it. It's fantastic."
That's excellent.
And that's sort of, you know, the stuff that you want to hear.
And why do you think the industry has like shifted so much to? Because I agree, there is so much just like push for volume that quality has kind of gone out the window. No one's really thinking for the long term.
Oh, I think the governments have got it all wrong in many respects. I mean, we were building apartments in South Yarra on top of the railway station and selling them for $340,000. They were 40 square metres, so it's like a New York one bedroom, okay? Yeah. So they're small, and everyone arced up and they said, no, we can't have 40 square metre apartments in Melbourne anymore. We've got to have 50 square metres, and they've all got to have their own bedroom and their own light and their own, access to this and that, blah, blah, blah. So that that meant that the smallest apartment in Melbourne would have to be 55 square metres. So if you said it was $10,000 a metre, we went from $400,000 to $550,000. It was a different price point. So it then made everybody compete. We were then competing with people overseas or whatever who would want to buy, could buy a house for the same price. And so house and land was the dream. then the government came and taxed the foreigners. They said, "Oh, we can't have all the Chinese and the Malaysians and the Cantonese and everyone owning our properties. Let's put a foreign tax on them." Well, that stopped the industry. I mean, they were the ones who were creating the stock. They were creating the houses for everybody to live in, but they owned them overseas. Who cares? I mean, you can't take it with you, right? Like it's there. And so the policy was just wrong. In Victoria in particular, they put a 7% tax on. There's vacant taxes on now. So they're like, we killed that foreign market. So where once you do that, we were building at one stage, we were building up to 25,000 apartments a year. And now we're lucky to be doing 5,000, and we're 5 years behind, and you need 25,000. Well, we used to need 25. We now need 30,000 apartments and 30,000 house and land packages a year just to keep up with the current migration. And it's actually 80,000, and we're just miles behind it.
And what do you think the answer
Government
is?
bureaucracy is just crazy with planning and all the other bullshit that goes on now. It's so hard. Like it's a young man's game. It's patience, or it's a big man's game. It's hard for the middle guy now. Capital's tight. Construction costs are high. We haven't seen much relief in those, and with construction prices being so high that when we needed $10,000 a square metre, we now need $15,000 a square metre. So it means your one-bedroom apartment's gone from 400 to 550 to 700,000. It's not affordable. And some of the other rules they brought in. So don't get me going on too much.
Yeah. So Michael, you mentioned before that you didn't have the chance to go to university and have that education, but you over the years you've gone through step by step. You develop yourself into a very significant person in the industry, and my question, how did you do that? Like, I mean, education is one important part, but obviously you bring a lot of other personal skills to get into that. What's the secret behind it?
I actually don't really know what the secret is. It's sort of something that just happens, I suppose. I don't know. It's, I think I got away with everything because I built good teams. So my team at Little Projects was amazing. My team at Toll Holdings was amazing. My team at Costa Fox was so good I could walk out the door and they didn't need to replace me.
Yeah.
I think that's been my secret really, is to build a really good team. And I've always had one or two people that have been able to clean up after me. So I go in with my big picture, make a mess and everything, and then other people tidy it all up in the background. And generally it works. We haven't had too many misses over the journey. So we'll see while we sit it out on the sidelines what awaits.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably your secret. Like, you have the power of empowering others. I mean, you could. I always tell, right? You can be the dumbest guy in the room as long as there's a smarter people to do stuff for you, right? So you empower them to do great things. Probably that's your secret.
It was.
Yeah. And how do you? My follow-up question to it, right? So when you have a room full of smarter people, and you're always thinking, hey. I'm not saying that you're not smart, but you're thinking, I haven't gone through university. I mean, these guys are probably got engineering degrees, etc. How do you manage that kind of people?
I think in the end it comes down to your experience and being given the opportunity at a younger age to show a bit of leadership and to I was given pretty broad reins at Smorgon. At Toll, I mean, we were doing big deals. Like we would have done $1 billion worth of new industrial facilities with Goodman at the time. We were building, and when we were given free rein, we were trusted. We weren't micromanaged. I always believed that if you hired somebody to do a job, that they could do it, and that I didn't need to sit over the top of you and check. So I would never micromanage anybody. It was all, this is your job, just go and do it, and get it done.
Yeah.
you probably don't really think about that sort of stuff until you go to do the Harvard course and you go, oh yeah, you know, I probably did do that, and I probably did do that, and I was pretty lucky on. Shit, I never did that. There were bits and pieces that you always you like as a leader, and bits and pieces that you don't like. So you get somebody that can do those jobs. But I suppose I always live by the motto from a couple of people is zero tolerance for liars and dickheads. So life goes on.
Yeah. And did you have any mentors, I suppose, that imparted some wisdom on you that you think you've taken with you?
Look, in my career, I've been blessed with the people that I've worked with. I've worked with some incredible people, some really smart people as well that would help, with some of the deals and some of the structures and so forth. Some of the people that built warehouses and who trusted me. We were building rail terminals and ports and a $300 million development in Singapore, and I couldn't do that on my own, but I would find the people that were capable of actually doing it, and then get those jobs done. I had a great old construction manager, down here in Melbourne, and he would go everywhere, and he was old school, back in the day, everyone's and get on with it, get off my site, and but I was just having good people. I was blessed with, I had, so many good bosses over the, nearly every one of my bosses has been a great person or a great mentor. I go back through all of them and think, they were all really good. And the teams that we had in some of those businesses, there were, some pretty incredible people that we worked with. So, my real thing in life, I suppose, was Toll. Toll was just the most amazing job. We worked so hard. We built a behemoth, and I was part of it, it was just one of those great things. You look back on it now and go, wow, what a journey! What a journey that was.
Yeah.
We were on aeroplanes day in, day out, going we're here, there, and everywhere. And, but it was an amazing company.
Now you've done your Harvard OPM course. Would you do anything differently there when you were in Toll's days? If you had this course earlier?
Look, it's an interesting question, Jam, and I kept going back to the Harvard thing, and because when I did it, I was actually unemployed. Right? So I was one of the few that didn't really have a business to apply it to, but until I came across this business that I'm in now, what I did halfway through. So that was good, but I'd sort of just exited when we started, so it was hard to apply it. I probably would have done a lot more, maybe a bit more on the leadership and the culture. I think that was one of the things that really came out of Harvard was building. Though we built good teams and we had good times, so we probably weren't aware of it so much back then. It wasn't drilled into you. We had a company of, I don't know, we got to about $4.5 billion. We only had one HR person. Right? Wow. It was like, philosophy was like, well, if you don't have a HR person, if you don't have a HR department, you've got no one to complain to. So, everyone just has to do their own thing, and you get by. So, no, I think the thing I was thinking about it last night, and we were having this chat today, is that I haven't yet, I don't think, put what I've learned at Harvard is still bubbling away in the background. I haven't put that to use yet. So I'm here doing something that I quite enjoy, but wondering, should I be, or could I be, what else could I be doing? Using my previous career history plus, my Harvard OPM skills and so forth to do something else. But I haven't addressed that. I'm sort of things in my life have normally just have happened by chance.
Yeah.
And so I figure that the next thing will happen by chance.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that is. I sort of got an idea of what I would like to do, but I've promised the owner of this business, that I'd stay around. But I think there's still options that I can stay here and do some other things as well.
So tell us a bit more about what you do currently with this Polar
Enviro. So we have a photoluminescence technology, which it replaces a battery. And the market that we've sort of gone after, it's not a sexy market, but it's exit signs in buildings. So if you think about, in Australia, there's 100 million, we've drilled this down, there's about 100 million exit signs in Australia in buildings. We've been able to take the battery out of the exit sign. So this is a startup. It's had a lot of money poured into it. The technology's there. We've been winning big customers. We've just done Telstra. We've done Department of Defence. We're doing Harvey Norman. It has global potential. I'm using my skills to open doors to the bigger companies. It's surprisingly with these bigger REITs and everything that they're not probably more on board as yet. They all have 5 pages of ESG on their website. Our signs last 4 times long. They use 85% less electricity, and we can't get them to engage. It's like, and it's money. It is actually money for jam, because they're spending money replacing their other ones with old technology when there's a new technology. So, trying to apply all those things that we learned at Harvard and some more to try and get this thing, up and running. But it's basically called Smarter Light, environmental exit signs. It's photoluminescence, but we also do, can do road markings. We make things glow in the dark once it's exposed to, once the photoluminescence is exposed to light, it creates energy, which becomes the battery.
Yeah. And I suppose this is an innovation, but in the construction industry as a whole and your experience, what do you think the trends are going towards the future?
So the construction industry is probably the least impacted or changed industry out of anything, out of any industry that you could possibly think of. There's been hardly any innovation in the last 50 years. We still build buildings pretty much the same way, maybe a little bit different. We've changed formworks, we've changed the way we do, we've changed the way we do our structures and something and so forth. But, there's very little. There's been talk of, being able to get your whole set of documents or plans off the internet. You hit Google and it's going to give me a 3-bedroom house with a full design and all the structural engineering takeoffs and everything. That sort of hasn't happened yet. They talk about printing buildings and houses. Well, that's great, but you can only print one at a time. So Hickory, Michael Argrew, one of our Harvard brothers, he's probably leading the way with some of his technology with bathroom pods and so forth, where we build the bathroom off-site and we ship it into a tower. Nice. And some of their technology in jump forms and so forth to get buildings out of the ground. So, but other than that, there really hasn't been that much. We're working with a lot of the builders now on our technology, but they're still of the mindset that they'd rather put a $50 cheap Chinese fitting in that gets them over the line and the building finished and they hand it over and they walk away, rather than something that's environmentally friendly, going to last 16 years. So builders traditionally haven't been our friend. Developers probably aren't our friend because they want something cheap and quick and so forth. So we're dealing with institutions and REITs and large property owners. I think they'll come around.
And how do you change that mindset, that kind of throwaway mindset?
Oh, I was saying before, we go to meetings, everybody loves our technology. Yeah. They're blown away by it. It's fantastic. Yeah. But trying to get it implemented. Do you know who is responsible for an exit sign in a building? It can be the building manager, could be the property manager, could be the facilities manager, could be the owner, could be the electrician. You've got to cover off so many different people,
stakeholders,
and you only need one blockage, and we get blocked. You need someone to drive it from the top right down, and then from the bottom right up. So,
do you think this industry, the whole construction industry, is a very bureaucratic industry?
Yeah, I think. Well, we're governed in Australia, particularly Melbourne. We're governed very heavily by unions, union costs, building costs. The amount of RDOs that we have, safety's improved with unions, has been great. But cost here is just so
crazy,
cost prohibitive. You know, like in Dubai, they're building towers for 1/3 of the price that we're building them here for. I mean, that's using different labour, obviously, but you wouldn't be able to do that in Australia. But that's why it's an expensive place to live here.
Yeah, because I heard that you guys were talking like I mean, for our perception, construction industry is a very profitable business, right? Like, and
There's more builders gone broke in the last 2 years than in the history.
The margins are like single digits, right?
Yeah. There's not
yeah,
much.
if you're lucky.
You wouldn't. I don't think no one wants to be a builder anymore. It's crazy. And developers always put the hard word on them. During COVID, when prices all increased, the builders had to go and beg their clients for more money. Some would help, others would just say, no, we've got a contract, it's bad luck, so the builder would hit the wall. Things like that.
Yeah.
It's like it's a hard game. But once all those contracts pre-COVID wash out, I think going forward, the construction guys that have survived will have pretty strong businesses. But they will be left with we won't have as big a choice, particularly to build towers and so forth.
Yeah. So Michael, what's your plan for you? Like, you mentioned you wanna still stay in the property development area, or you wanna look at a different industry altogether?
No, I think property's where my head and my heart are. I've been in it for a long time. I don't think I could go and change or do anything else, although I am in an innovative and technical business now. But it's still property related. Is what I'm doing. No, I think I'm here, Jam. Is there something else? Could I get a role on a board or some boards helping younger people? It's probably the key. That was really why I did Harvard, because there was an education piece missing in my life, and I thought, when I retire, if I would like to sit on a board, no one's going to employ me because everyone's got 2 degrees or something. These days I've got nothing except experience. And unfortunately, when you apply for jobs these days, AI knocks you. If you don't have a degree, AI knocks you out. You don't even get to first base unless it's you know the people that you actually can ring up and say, I wouldn't mind talking to you. I've got lots of experience, but you don't get through the AI walls.
Yeah. Would you consider starting a new business again?
Contemplated it. Probably not. To go and rattle the can again, raise capital, employ people. I think I'm done. I've done it twice, and I think that's enough. I'll leave it for there for now, I suppose. But my skills they're in demand somewhere. I've just got to find the right person. But I'm not hanging the shingle out the door either. I've been having a pretty good time with them.
And plus, you have so much experience that you can share, right? Like, you could very nicely fit into advisory role.
Yeah, well, that's probably where I'll pursue some more work. Whilst I love it here, I've got capacity to do more. I can only play so much golf, So no, and I think I'm ready for something else as well as doing this. So, but what that is, I don't know yet.
And while you were working, you mentioned family is really important. How did you go about the balance between work and family? I had I was married for 30 odd years. That recently ended, and my wife was very good with my kids. But we would always have holidays together. Would always try and be home. Probably wasn't always there, but we made the best of it. When we both we had twin girls when we were 28 or 29 or something, and life was just frenetic. It was crazy, and we were both working, so we made a decision then that we would. She would stay home and look after the kids, and I would look after
everything else. So that relationship's all done and dusted now. But we got our 3 kids through school and through university, and it all worked. And they're fantastic. And I credit their mother, to be honest, with all that.
Yeah. And I suppose looking back on your journey,
Yeah.
do you feel successful?
Do I feel successful? Yeah, to a certain extent, I think. Yeah, I've got. I think I've got a reasonably good name out there from a business point of view. Personally, it's taken a bit of a beating lately, but from a business point of view, I've always said to always be the better man. And never compromise. You can always be compromised. There's always compromises to be made. Don't compromise yourself. Once somebody's got something on you, you're gone.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
So I would say don't blemish yourself. Just always be the better man. Sometimes you've got to walk away. I've learnt that in the school of hard knocks, is that not everybody thinks like you. I think I'm a nice guy. I think everybody's a nice guy. And then again, every now and again you come across an arsehole, pardon the French. But, with other people think completely opposite. Some people think everybody's an arsehole, and every now and again there's a good person. And so you've got to be wary of those people, because they don't care.
Yeah.
And I got taught that lesson, and it hit hard that, not everybody's actually what you expect, who you think they are.
Yeah.
And it's quite devastating when that happens.
Well, Michael, this has been a fantastic discussion, and I know we could stay here for a lot longer. But I suppose looking back on your journey, I was jotting down a few things which I think have been part of your success, and I'd like to share them with you. The first one is, I feel like one of the core traits is you prioritize experience and learning from others. Like we talked a lot through your journey. You went and kind of found mentors and found on-the-job experience and kind of worked your way through so that you had an understanding of kind of the entire process. And so when it came time for you to, go and start your own businesses, you had that full kind of end-to-end understanding. And I think having the experience, it makes it a lot easier when you're building teams as well, because you have an appreciation of what your team's going through, and they know that you've been in their shoes as well. And so it kind of makes that kind of building trust a lot easier.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
And then the next one is you go with the flow.
Yeah.
You mentioned there, I'll see what's next for me. Like I know something will come. And I think, I'm definitely the opposite. Like I always try and overanalyze, overplan, but there's a beauty in just like going with the flow and knowing that you've worked hard, you've built all of this experience, and that tomorrow something will come, and that kind of it frees you of a lot of head noise.
Yeah.
I think, and it just lets you get the task at hand done. The next one is empowering teams, and I think kind of goes to that first point. You said that your success is because you are able to empower and build great teams, and I think again that comes to that respect point, and you can only do so much by yourself.
Yeah.
But with a team, you can, go and exponentially scale. And I think that goes to the last point, which is you're incredibly relationship driven. Even throughout the work you're doing now, it's all about the relationships that you've had in the past and how do you open doors with them now. And, obviously that's come from years of experience building relationships. And even in sales, as you said, you've got to work on that trust first.
It is funny though, that sometimes the ones that you've helped on the way up, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to you when you're down here now.
That's always the case. Yeah. But just add to what Dylan was saying. We heard this word on and on is trust. So it's. I think we talked about what's your secret ingredient. I think that's purely what I can see. It's just trust. So you actually given trust to others, pretty much empower them to do what they're good at, and also you gain trust like by empowering them and also delivering what you promise to deliver, right? Yeah. So I think that's your pretty much secret ingredient, Michael, and knowing you as well, someone that you can all rely on. So
Thanks, Jim.
yeah.
I'm always there.
yeah, that's it. That's it. Anytime, good or bad, you're there. You're happy to support your mates.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time, Michael. I know with a very quick notice, and we had this opportunity to talk to you.
It was a pleasure to be on. It's great to see you both, and I look back on my Harvard experience as probably one of the best things that one of my biggest achievements in life, if not for my children. Probably Harvard for me was that big, and meeting you and the crew has just been the most amazing thing. So thank you, and thanks for having me on Quest for Success.
No worries.
Thank you.
And if you found something insightful from today's episode, if you could do us a massive favor and go and like and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this on right now. And you can see all of our inspiring episodes over on our website, thequestforsuccesspodcast.com. And with that, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening.